What's up guys, it's John here at Daddy Directive. Today I'm going to talk about something that many parents sometimes get worried about when it comes to their child, and that is their language development milestones. I know that it's very easy for parents to compare their child with other children, as some of the developmental milestones are quite visible, or in this case, quite audible. But do remember that every children have a different rate when it comes to the language development especially. Do take the information that I provide to you as a guidance only, and don't panic if your child is not showing those kind of indicators at those particular milestones. But before we move on to that, let's hit that like button so you could really help out the channel. And I hope the information that you'll be receiving today will be absolutely valuable in looking at what you should be looking for your child when it comes to their language. So most babies won't be speaking much before they are 12 months old. Very rarely in the case that when they want milk or something and go, "Hey mom, I want some milk please," or say, "Dad, there's a diaper change that needs to be happening right now." If your kid does say that before they're 12 months old, that is much faster than the regular milestone, and that he or she is probably a genius. But if you're not in one of those categories, these are the more likely the situations where you would be looking for when it comes to the language development. By the time that your baby is 12 months old, they should at least be able to say mama or dada. And they should be able to use gestures and point at things that they might be interested in. They should, by at this point, be babbling those B's and P's, so like ba 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 ba, those kind of things. And if your baby doesn't actually say a single word by the time they're 15 months old, then you should start to maybe think about actually contacting the doctor to see if there's any particular reason for the developmental delays when it comes to the language. By the time they're 18 months old, you should be able to point at certain body parts and they should be able to tell you what that is. They may not be able to sing the whole song, head, shoulders, knees, toes, and knees and toes, but at least if you point at one of the things, they may be able to say knees, head, eye, something along that line. And it is more typical that by the time they are 18 months old, they should have around at least 6 vocabularies. Now, having said that, my kids are actually 13 months old now, and I think they only know like 2 or 3 words at this point. It's not unusual for them to not actually say any words, and then at a certain point, they just suddenly start saying 3 or 4 different words at once. Because a lot of times the babies are actually taking a lot of the information in, and even though they may not actually understand exactly what that word means, it is part of their database in their head, which will actually make connections later on to make sense to them. By the time they are 19 to 24 months old, if they're not really learning about a word every week, then their development in language is considered slow. So what are the factors that could cause a delay in the language development? Well, one of them is that if you're a boy, you're more likely to develop language slower than the girls. If you're also born prematurely, you're likely to have some delays. If you also have low birth weight, that could also be the determining factor. If you have a family history of a slow speech development, that could also be part of the reason. So if you yourself or your parents were slow to speak, it is possible that your child will be slow to speak as well. If you're not sure, check with your parents to see if you were slower when it comes to speaking. So what are the things that you could do to encourage the development of the language? The first thing that you could do is actually talk to your child or talk to your baby from the moment they're born. In fact, even before they're born, by talking to them while they're in their womb, they get familiarized with your voice and they start to understand how certain sounds are made. So even if they do not actually associate the exact meaning of those words, the way you pronounce certain words and make sound helps them to develop their linguistic skills. Even if they're babbling and it doesn't really seem to make any sense, respond to those babbling as if you were talking to them. This actually encourages them to understand that the dynamic when it comes to a conversation and language, where there is an interaction between two people. Another thing that you could do is you could sing to your child, even when they're a baby. Singing is just another form of talking. It just has melody attached to it. You could also read aloud to your child. Part of actually understanding the language is actually hearing the sound itself. The child will learn their languages faster when they observe and hear other people talking to each other. Every opportunity that your baby or your child sees you speaking to your spouse is an opportunity for them to learn the language. And lastly, if your child asks you a question, answer the question without ignoring it. Because when there is more interaction when it comes to the questions and answers and conversation, it will inevitably accelerate the rate at which they can learn the language. So what does it really come down to as a parent? Be attentive, be talkative, and be patient. You can't force this kind of development. And these developments will come over time. So sometimes you just need to be a little bit more patient. I, myself, was a slower speaker. I started speaking much slower than the typical developmental milestones. Knowing that, I know that I would not be too worried if my kids happen to be a little bit slower than usual. Fortunately for me, I think they are pretty on par with the development stages so far, but they are only 13 months old, so I'll also have to see and how they will develop into the later years. Guys, I hope the information you found today was helpful. And if you did, please hit that like button. That will really help out the channel. And if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos in the future, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when a new video comes up. So I upload videos every Mondays and Thursdays. So do come and check us out if you feel that you need more information on when it comes to parenting tips. As always, thank you so much for watching and happy parenting.